The first time Antonia Vega ran again. She did it without a saddle. The ranch was still half asleep. The sky painted pale pink and gold as dawn crept over the plains. Dust clung to her boots as she sprinted across the open field, breath steady, legs burning in a familiar, welcome way. A chestnut mare thundered beside her, hooves pounding the earth, mane flying wild. Antonia smiled. She pushed harder. For a brief, reckless moment, the world narrowed to speed and rhythm, the pounding of her heart. The wind tearing at her hair, the ground rushing beneath her feet. She cut sharply to the left. The mare snorted and veered, and Antonia reached the fence first, grabbing the rail and vaulting over just as the horse skidded to a stop. She bent over, hands on her knees, laughing quietly to herself. No crowds, no wagers, no shouting men calling her name. Just her. Once, Antonia Vega had been famous in racing circles. A girl who could outrun trained horses, who rode bareback when others clung to saddles, who won races no one expected her to survive. They had called her reckless, fearless, unstoppable, until the fall, until the broken bones and broken trust, until the whispers turned cruel and the tracks felt smaller, tighter, like cages. So she ran. She ran far from the tracks and found herself here working as a ranch helper on the edge of Dry Creek, earning honest wages and keeping her head down. Most folks didn't know her past, and Antonia intended to keep it that way. That morning, the sound of wagon wheels broke the quiet. She straightened slowly, shading her eyes. A long line of wagons rolled across the horizon, oxen straining, drivers shouting, dust billowing into the sky. Wagon trains meant business, movement, and troubleland. They rarely stopped unless they had to. At the front road, a man who looked like he belonged wherever he went. Alex Mercer sat his horse with easy authority, broad-shouldered, steady, his gaze sweeping the land like he was measuring it. As wagon master, he'd guided dozens of families west. He trusted numbers, distance, and instinct. And instinct and all three told him something unusual was happening at this ranch. Then he saw her. Antonia was crossing the yard, wiping sweat from her brow, unaware she was being watched. Her stride was confident, balanced, like someone who knew exactly how fast her body could move. Alex narrowed his eyes. "That woman," he murmured to one of his drivers, "moves like she's racing something she can't see." Later, as the wagons rested, Alex dismounted and approached the corral where Antonia worked. She sensed him before she saw him. "You lost?" she asked, without turning. Alex smiled slightly. "Not yet." She faced him. Then, brown eyes guarded, he tipped his hat. "Name's Alex Mercer." "Wagon master Antonia," she replied. "Ranch help." He studied. Her hands strong, scarred, steady. "You handled that mare like a racer." Her jaw tightened. "I don't race." "I didn't say you did," he said calmly. "But I'd wager you could outrun most men on horseback." Antonia met his gaze, something sharp flashing between them. "Careful," she said. "Some wagers cost more than money." Alex chuckled softly. "So do missed chances." As he walked away, Antonia watched him go, uneasy. Because for the first time in years, someone had seen her, not as who she was hiding from, but who she still might be. Antonia tried to ignore Alex Mercer. That proved harder than she expected. The wagon train stayed longer than planned. One axle had cracked, and a sick ox delayed their departure. The extra day should have meant nothing to her. Yet Antonia found herself aware of Alex's presence in ways that unsettled her. His voice, carrying across the yard. His silhouette against the sunset. The calm authority with which he gave orders. He watched everything, including her. By mid-morning, Antonia was repairing a broken fence when she felt eyes on her back. She straightened slowly and turned. Alex leaned against a post, arms crossed, hat pushed back just enough to reveal a thoughtful expression. "You always move like that?" he asked. "Like what?" she replied. "Like you're measuring the ground before it can surprise you." Antonia's fingers tightened around the hammer. "Habit," he nodded, as if that explained everything. "I'm short one scout," he said. Someone fast enough to ride ahead. Check river crossings. Watch for trouble. She shook her head immediately. Not interested. Alex didn't seem offended. Didn't expect you to be. That made her scowl. Then why ask? Because you're exactly who I need, he said simply. Antonia set the hammer down harder than necessary. You don't know me. I know speed, Alex replied, and I know fear. You have one and not the other. That hit too close. She turned away, busying herself with the fence. Find someone else. Alex studied her for a long moment. I leave tomorrow at dawn, he said. If you change your mind, saddle up. That night, sleep refused to come. Antonia lay staring at the bunkhouse ceiling, listening to the wind and the distant nickering of horses. Memories crept in the roar of crowds, the pounding of hooves. The moment the ground rose too fast and everything shattered. She rolled onto her side, heart racing. She told herself she didn't want the job, that she didn't need the money, that speed had cost her enough already. But when dawn came, her horse was already saddled. Alex noticed the moment he stepped outside. No smile, no comment, just a nod as if he'd known all along. He handed her a folded map and pointed west. Ride fast, ride smart. Meet us at the river crossing by sunset. And if I don't? Antonia asked. His eyes met hers, steady and sharp. Then I was wrong. Something in his tone sparked her pride. She swung into the saddle and rode. The land opened before her, wide plains, uneven ground, hidden dips that could snap a leg if taken wrong. Antonia leaned low, reading the earth the way she once read racetracks. She trusted instinct over fear, muscle over memory. Hours passed in a blur of motion. When she reached the river crossing, the sun hovered low, painting the water gold. Antonia slowed her horse, chest heaving, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something dangerously close to joy. She waited. Alex arrived, moments later, dust-covered and smiling. You beat us, he said. Barely, she replied. He reached into his pocket and handed her coins. A wager's a wager. Antonia looked at the money, then back at him. You shouldn't bet on people. Alex's smile softened. Sometimes people are the only thing worth betting on. For the first time in years, Antonia didn't know how to run from that. The trail changed everything. By the third day, Antonia no longer felt like an outsider riding ahead of the wagons. She rose before dawn, scouted riverbanks, tested soil, and returned with clear reports. The drivers listened. The families trusted her. Even the children waved when she rode back in dust-streaked and sure. Alex noticed more than her speed. He noticed how she slowed near rocky ground so the wagons wouldn't suffer. How she doubled back without complaint when a trail felt wrong. How she spoke little but said exactly what mattered. That kind of judgment couldn't be taught. One evening, as the wagons circled for camp, Alex joined her near the horses. The firelight painted his face amber and shadow. You saved us half a day by cutting north, he said. Antonia shrugged. The ground was firmer. That's not what I meant. She glanced at him, wary. Compliments still made her uneasy. You pay me to ride. I pay you to keep people alive, Alex replied. Speed alone doesn't do that. The words settled between them, heavy and sincere. Later, while the camp slept, Antonia sat apart, mending a torn rein. Alex approached quietly and handed her a tin cup of coffee. You don't have to stay out here alone, he said. She accepted the cup. I like the quiet. Me too, he admitted. For a while, they said nothing. The stars stretched wide above them, endless and indifferent. Antonia felt something loosen inside her chest, something she'd kept tight since the fall. People talk, she said suddenly. Alex didn't pretend not to understand. They always do. They talked after my accident, she continued. Said I was reckless. Said I got what I deserved. He turned toward her fully. Antonia met his gaze. No, he nodded once. That's all I needed to hear. But the past had a way of catching up. 2 days later, another wagon train appeared on the horizon. Its master rode forward, eyes sharp with recognition. His gaze locked on Antonia. Well, I'll be damned, the man said loudly. If it isn't the track darling herself. The camp stilled. Antonia felt the old heat rise in her spine. You're mistaken, she said. Oh, I don't think so, he sneered. Fastest girl to ever break her neck and walk away. Murmurs rippled through the families. Alex stepped forward. You'll mind your tongue, he said calmly. The man laughed. You trusting her with your people. That's a wager I wouldn't take. Antonia waited for Alex to look at her differently. He didn't. She's earned her place, Alex said. Move on. The rival wagon master scoffed, but rode away. That night, Antonia found Alex alone, studying maps. You didn't ask, she said quietly. I didn't need to, he replied. Her voice wavered. You don't know what I did. I know what you do now, Alex said. That matters more. Something in her broke, then not painfully, but softly, like ice melting after a long winter. From that night on, the distance between them shrank. Their hands brushed when passing maps. Their conversations lingered. The unspoken grew heavier, warmer, harder to ignore. But Antonia knew better than to trust something moving this fast. Speed had taken everything from her once, and the trail ahead was still long. The sky turned the color of bruised steel. The morning the river rose. Antonia felt it before she saw it. The air pressed heavy against her lungs, the wind shifting in sharp, uneasy gusts. She rode ahead, as usual, but her horse's ears stayed pinned forward, muscles tight beneath her legs. When she reached the river crossing, her stomach dropped. The water had swollen overnight, rushing fast and loud, churning with debris. A fallen tree slammed against the bank and vanished downstream. Antonia urged her horse closer, testing the ground with careful steps. Too deep, too fast. She turned and rode hard back to camp. Alex was already organizing the drivers when she arrived. The river's blown, she said. If we try to cross, we'll lose wagons. Maybe lives. He nodded immediately. Then we don't cross. Relief washed through her. No arguing, no pride. But the storm worsened by midday. Rain fell in sheets, the river climbing higher, spilling into the low banks where 2 wagons were parked. Families scrambled, children crying as water soaked bedding and supplies. Antonia didn't wait for orders. She grabbed a rope, mounted her horse, and rode straight into the rising water. The current slammed against her legs, icy and relentless. She looped the rope around the first wagon axle, tying it fast while the water climbed higher. Antonia, Alex shouted from the bank. It's too dangerous. She didn't look back, then stopped watching. Her horse struggled hooves, slipping on unseen stones. Fear clawed at her chest, sharp and familiar. For a heartbeat, she was back on the track, falling, spinning, helpless. No. She pushed forward. At the rope secured, Antonia guided the wagon toward higher ground, shouting directions through the rain. One by one, the trapped wagons followed, the current roaring in protest. By the time she reached shore, her hands were numb, her body shaking. Alex was there instantly, gripping her arms. You could have been killed, he said, voice tight. So could they, she replied. Rain streamed down his face as he looked at her, not with anger, but awe. You don't outrun danger, he said quietly. You face it. That night, the storm passed, leaving the world washed clean. Fires burned again. Children slept safely. Antonia stood apart, wrapping her arms around herself, exhaustion sinking deep into her bones. Alex joined her. I've bet on speed my whole life, he said. Distance, timing, odds. She glanced at him. And I've never bet on someone like this, he continued. Someone who risks everything for others. Her breath caught. Alex, I won't make you promises you don't want, he said gently. But I won't pretend I don't care. The silence stretched, fragile and electric. Antonia reached for him first. Their kiss was slow, uncertain at first, then sure at 2 people who had run hard and finally stopped. When they pulled apart, Antonia rested her forehead against his. I'm afraid, she admitted. So am I, Alex replied. But I think some things are worth the risk. For the first time since her fall, Antonia believed him. The land softened as they neared the valley. Grass grew thicker, the air warmer, and the long, grinding tension of the trail began to ease. Wagons rolled more smoothly now, wheels humming instead of groaning. Laughter returned to camp in the evenings, and the talk shifted from survival to beginnings where cabins would stand, where crops might grow, what names children would remember when they spoke of this journey years from now. Antonia rode ahead one last time at dawn, cresting a low hill to see the valley spread wide and green below her. Sunlight poured across the earth like a promise. She reined in her horse and breathed deeply. She had run so far to get here, not just across land, but away from fear, shame, and the version of herself that believed speed only led to pain. She touched the scar along her ribs, a quiet reminder of where she had been and how far she'd come. Behind her, hoofbeats approached. Alex drew up beside her, his horse blowing softly. He followed her gaze to the valley and smiled. "You did it," he said. "We did," Antonia corrected. He studied her profile, serious now. "The wagons will settle here. My job ends once they're safe." He paused. "Yours doesn't have to." Antonia turned to him, heart thudding. "What are you asking?" Alex dismounted, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I've spent my life moving," he said, "never staying long enough to build something that lasts. I thought that was freedom. And now?" she asked quietly. "And now I think freedom might be choosing wherein, who you stop for." Emotion rose sharp and sudden in her chest. "I don't race anymore," she said, the old fear flickering. "I don't know if I ever will." Alex reached for her hand. "I don't need you to race," he said. "Just don't run from me." Antonia laughed softly through the tightness in her throat. "That might be harder." They rode back to camp together. By midday, the wagons rolled into the valley, cheers breaking out as families climbed down and touched the ground like it might disappear. Children ran, dogs barked, fires were lit with celebration instead of necessity. Antonia helped unhitch horses, moving easily among the people who now trusted her completely. She felt proud not of her speed, but of her steadiness. As the sun dipped low, Alex found her again near the edge of camp. "I'm thinking of staying," he said, "helping organize supply routes, maybe building something permanent." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds a lot like settling down." "Careful," he teased. "You make it sound dangerous." She stepped closer, slipping her hand into his. "Some risks are worth taking." They stood together as horses grazed nearby, free and unhurried. Antonia watched them move, powerful and calm. No longer something she needed to outrun. She had learned something important on this journey. Speed wasn't about escape. It was about choosing when to stop. Alex squeezed her hand and she squeezed back, grounded and certain. Whatever came next, she would face it not alone, not afraid, and not running. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.